RJ, your 5-weight.
Okay, I'm going with the Los Angeles Chargers. Let me give a little story here.
This is my 2-weight.
Oh, great! Because I know we got some crossfires. This one, though, we're in agreement.
Absolutely.
All right. So my thinking here is I'm going to tell a little story. Back in 1992, I was in it was a really cool class at The Ohio State University my senior year, or my fourth year, my senior year. And it was it was an honors class, but the key was we got to manage money. There was a group of like 12 finance students, and literally we got to manage, like, I think it was $5 million of the endowment of The Ohio State University. Now, they had safeguards, right? We could only make like 3 trades a year. We could only trade, so it was going to be where they're not risking some crazy, like, hey, we're betting it all on the 49ers or whatever, right? But it was cool because, you're a 20-year-old kid and you got millions of dollars under management. And we would do better than the rest of the endowment. When I say we, I mean the prior classes that I was no part of, right? And they asked, well, why is that? Like, how could that be? How could the 20-year students know more? And it was like, well, because we didn't trade as much, because we had restrictions on us, just the cost of transactions in the long. That's the whole, like, put it in the S&P 500 and you're going to do better because you're not trading it all the time. So we were naturally hamstrung and thus did better because we didn't have as many transaction costs. But one of the things I remember was the stock market was like 3,600 for the Dow. And I remember looking at it going, it's a little frothy, a little pricey. Now, I think the Dow closed with, what, 36,000, is it? Or in that range recently? It's been over 30.
45,000 closed today.
Oh, it's 45.
Yeah.
Okay. So at 3,600, I thought, a little pricey. And I've been thinking, a little pricey the whole time. Like right now, if you ask me, I'd say, a little pricey. I probably lost more money from not just putting money into the stocks than I could ever make with sharp, little angle plays. And that what I've learned with myself. Now, here's the difference. So with stocks, if you play it blind with no churn, you make money, at least historically, upwards of, during some periods, 11% a year. Meaning if you look from like 1950, I think, to at least like 2007 or whatever. Now, it's been a little less since then, if I recall, but let's say 5% a year. That's a lot of money over time.
So in my previous life, RJ, you may know this, I was a pension actuary.
Yes, I do.
And so it's difficult because you have to project the assets and liabilities, and we would use an assumption for how much the fund would earn. And so back this is in the late 80s, early 90s, I remember pretty regularly, if they invested conservatively, we'd assume that the portfolio would earn like 6%, but if they aggressed ultra aggressively, more like 7.5%.
Yeah. So why am I saying this? Because right now I'm thinking, is this what's become clear is the Chiefs are unlike any team we've ever seen. I've been, it's funny, you feel your age a little bit. I still remember, I've heard early this year a lot of talk of Stan Humphries, because I think it was the Chargers in 92, if I think about it, maybe right around there, that they won like 13 straight against the spread.
Culminating with the lightning bolts going to your Pittsburgh Steelers.
But wasn't that the year? Did the Chargers actually play the 49ers in the Super Bowl? Or was that a later year?
That's the one, and the lightning bolts went into Pittsburgh and make the right-hand turn after upsetting Papuno, upsetting your Steelers as a 10-point dog and headed to Miami.
Cowher lost so many championship games with home field. But my point is that way back then the stock market was what it was. And I remember that. I remember, like we said, Coach K before, he was known as a winner. And somehow I'm much younger than you, Fez, so I don't get it, how I've seen all this. But what I will say is that I have been kind of saying, I'm not sure. But I also know, have you, let's say, in those similar years, Fez, maybe a little later because you didn't get into gambling or didn't get into sports as quickly or as young, but you did fairly young. Have you ever seen a team that if you say they're going to cover the spread or they're not going to cover the spread, but they're going to win the game, that does so at the pace the Chiefs do.
Absolutely not. I mean, it is. You nailed it. It's unprecedented because when you cut it this thin, you're just by pure chance, fourth quarter win share. The ball's going to bounce bad for you, but it's just. And you look at these Chiefs. It's not just. I get it. Mahomes against Carolina. Okay, he's going to lead them to the victory. But it's like a basketball team where their opponents are missing free throws. Literally, they're donezo. Denver all they have to do is kick a short field goal. All the Raiders have to do is execute and kick a field goal and beat them. And these other teams are just imploding. It's nothing the Chiefs are doing on defense.
Is it even they're imploding, or is it that Mahomes gets the ball tied and he's just going to get you a field goal? It seems like automatically.
Yeah, but the problem is half the time it's the other team that gets the ball at the end of the game.
There was 2 games. There was a game against the Broncos where they're 80% to lose and they block a field goal, and then against the Raiders, they were dogs to win the game just if they just ran 3 times and kicked a field goal to win it instead of fumbling on the first play.
Yeah. So I guess what I would say is this is a great situation to be getting. Well, if we look, first let's acknowledge what the line is. This is +4. This is saying, I mean, you really think about it. Again. Bills, I mean, we brought this up on Monday. Bills were -5.5 against Arizona, right? The beginning of the year, first week of the year. Is this being a 4 is saying clearly that the Chiefs are better. The Chiefs are way better. And, I mean, not, how many increments? Like, they're 3 increments better is what they're saying. Because this would be, what, -1.5 if they were even teams?
Kansas City -1.5, given the weather report, which is favorable. It's going to be in the 50s.
Favorable to not being bad weather, thus it doesn't help Kansas City extra like it might.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say -2.5, -120 is one clear increment, where it's like, no, they are better by a clear increment. They're not laying quite 3, but they're laying 2.5.
Yeah, I like that.
And then I would say that laying 3 is another increment.
Yep.
And then laying 3.5 is another, but let's say 4 just is in with 3.5, just to say 3. It's like 3 increments of team. And my point is, even if I thought that were true, I still want +4 here because the Chiefs play such close games, and the Chargers are the team of teams when it comes to they stay in the game. I think more than Tomlin even, they stay in the game, and they're going to make it close no matter what. Remember, if I remember, the Chargers had a backup quarterback in the first game, and it was, what was the line, 7 in it, if I recall? I'm just going by memory now.
Herbert ended up playing, but it was a speculation whether or not he'd play. It was 7.5 when it was clear he was not going to play. Then he came back hobbled, and it was 7 when it closed.
He was hobbled.
Yeah.
And what was the final?
It was 7, and they won by 7. It was
yeah.
close.
So I guess what I'm saying is I don't see the Chiefs don't blow people out, and the Chargers don't get blown out. The line seems more than fair. I'm interested to see what your power ratings think. And I would make the final point. The first game is a little deceiving, even though it fell right on the number with a hobbled quarterback.
Didn't Herbert get re-injured in that game, if I recall correctly?
Re-injured during the Chiefs game?
Yes.
And then left and didn't play the whole game?
That I can't recall.
No, yeah. So either way, let's say not 100%.
Yeah, he stayed in the game.
Yeah, okay.
So the Chiefs right now are on a 6-game ATS losing streak. It's the longest ATS losing streak of Patrick Mahomes' career. If you look since 2012, teams that are on a 6 or more ATS game losing streak and are favored in their next game, 4, 6, and 1 ATS minus 2.3 points per game. The average line is 4.3. If they are a good team, a 10 or more win team, and they're on a 6 or more game ATS losing streak, and they're favored 1 and 3 ATS by minus 6.4 points per game, and the average line in those games 5.7.
Do you have those games available? I'm guessing those are all 2007 Patriots. Like, how many games are?
Has any team ever gone 6-0 straight up and 0-6 against the spread?
I think the 2007 Patriots did.
I think it sounds right because they started out like 6-1 against the spread, and then they kept winning, obviously, but they weren't covering because the tax got to them. And I think it makes sense, right? The message is clear with the Chiefs. At the end of the game, Andy Reid doesn't have to raise heck and scream at his players. It's like, hey, we got to clean some stuff up, but we won the game. So there's not that sense of urgency to change and have, an urgent meeting to shake things up.
Those teams have been the Chiefs, by the way.
They've been the Chiefs.
It's been the Chiefs. 2020, 2021, 2021 Chiefs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, I mean, pretty on point.
Yeah, exactly.
let's use my kind of move it an increment and does it make sense, right? If we move this line to 6, I mean, does that make any sense?
No, it's way too much.
Yeah. And if we move this to 3, which is pretty comparable, right? 4 to 6.
Yes.
Right. If we move this to 3, yeah, I think the Chiefs are a little cheap, maybe. But boy, it wouldn't throw you. It wouldn't be crazy. I mean,
I make it 3 with my power ratings. I have Kansas City 2 points better on a neutral, so 3 with the home field.
And I think it's interesting. The summer line was 6. So you're saying and think about how ridiculous it would be to say, okay, from what we know now, the Chargers are just as good compared to the Chiefs.
Now, that is a great point.
Clear upgrade for the Chargers on the season, clear downgrade for the Chiefs.
If I look, actually,
or at least neutral.
Actually, yeah. So if I look at the Chargers, I've upgraded them 0.5 point year to date. If I look at poor Kansas City, they have been downgraded by 3.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I mean, the wins are deceiving because they've had so many of them. But I mean, Kansas City in the power ratings, I think, is very commonly 5th or 6th.
Yeah, 6. So in the composite, they're 6th at 4.1. Chargers are 10 at 1.7. So that's a 2.4 difference. With the 1.5 home field, we're looking at 3.9.
And I have Kansas City. You're going to like this, RJ. I got them 8. Guess who I got 7?
The Chargers?
Your Pittsburgh Steelers.
I got to tell you right now, I'm not sure I wouldn't like the Chargers on a neutral heads up right now. I just am a big fan of this team. I'm not a fan, but I'm a appreciator.
So injuries, the Chargers lose their running back, Dobbins. They got Gus Edwards. That's not
Is it Dobbins' his name?
Yes, Dobbins.
Okay.
More concerning is they got.
Did you say Baskin Robbins?
Yeah, exactly. They've got their number 1 wide receiver is the dude from Georgia, Lad McConkey, who appears that he's going to play, and he has been Herbert's favorite go-to guy.
All right, yeah. So it's funny. The running backs have emerged this year as you look at Saquon, MVP talk and all that. They're not interchangeable, but I'm not that worried. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Dobbins is injured every 2 weeks, right? Generally,
he's had a rough career. Yep.
Yeah.